Actually, Alder Weary, it's Assistant Director Burnett is in the chair, so.
Yeah, we'll let Jim drive the car today. Insurance is too high if I'm behind the wheel.
I don't know, with that mustache and chin here there, I think it looks like it's pretty authoritative there. We just waiting for Lynn, or?
Lynn is excused tonight.
Oh, Lynn is excused, okay.
Yep.
So waiting for 5 o'clock?
Yeah, I'm ready to go here.
All right. We'll get rolling. The Improvement Services Committee will come to order. We'll note that Alder Scannell is present, Alder Burnett, Alder Weary, and Alder Gaylock is excused. And I have an approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Alder Scannell, second by Alder Burnett to approve the agenda. Any changes? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those in favor of the agenda?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carried. Can I get approval of the minutes?
Motion to approve.
Second. By the way, I'm here. I don't know why I just disappeared, so I'm going to try to figure that out. No, I'm here.
No, we can see you.
You can? Okay.
Yeah.
I can't see myself. Huh. Go ahead.
You're a vampire. Are you looking in the mirror?
No. I'm here. Trust me. Thank you. Can't see myself. So I second that.
Looks like all the wearies froze.
Yeah, there we go. Boy, everything's kind of jumping around. Alder Burnett, did you second the approval of the minutes?
Yes.
Okay, so those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Regular business number 1, consideration with possible action on request by Information Services Group, Inc., ISG, to rent up to 41 parking stalls in River Ramp. Who gets this one?
Chris gets this one.
All right.
It's a parking division request. I put it in on behalf of ISG, who had contacted Justin Linsmeyer, our field superintendent. And I think everyone knows is owned by Foxconn. So I contacted Foxconn just to make sure that they were okay with it. And they said, yeah, we're fine. But right now, River Ramp is completely rented out, just for everyone's knowledge. You probably already know. Most of us know anyways. River Ramp's completely rented out right now, except for 41 stalls, which currently have meters. So I asked Foxconn, I said, can we rent out the last 41 meters to ISG, who's right there in the building next door? They said, originally they said yes on Monday, and then they contacted me later on Monday and said, well, we're just waiting to check in with, maybe we want to keep a couple for turnover. I said, I don't care. I just need to know the number that we can rent to ISG. So Terry Delsman is the lady that I deal with there. There was another gentleman who moved on. So I'm still waiting for Terry to get back to me. I was hoping I'd get an answer from her. I do pleasantly harass people. I don't like to go overboard. So I'm still waiting for Terry to get back to me, and I'll call her in the morning. And then I'll get in touch with Dan and let him know what the whole details are. But I don't know if Dan, if you have any questions for the group or for me or parking. We just manage the ramp on behalf of Foxconn. It's just part of an agreement associated with that original development of that building.
Oh, no, not.
Motion open the floor.
Motion by Alder Scannell, second by Alder Burnett.
Yep, second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. If I could just get, if anyone's for this item, if you could just get your name and address, please.
My name and address?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So my name is Dan Nelson. I work at ISG. My address is 1651 Spencer's Crossing. It's in Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Okay. Go ahead. Floor is yours, Dan.
No, absolutely. So yeah, and I spoke to Randy a little bit yesterday, and in general, so ISG is we're growing very rapidly. We actually are looking to build out the other side of our space currently in the Watermark building to add add around 50 employees, give or take, and we're going to add another 25 plus spots. So we're going to have well over 75 people in our space in the next 3 to 6 months here. And so really just kind of looking at some different options. We're aware that there's some spaces open, and there's been a lot of conversations within our firm just about opportunities to improve just the daily lives of our staff. Just a couple of questions and comments that have come up, and kind of was one of the things I was asked to do was look into some parking. We currently have, I believe it's 54 spots in the Cherry Street ramp. So yeah, I think that was really the biggest thing. We know that we actually talked to Cherry quite a bit with different requests that we have, and constantly getting new key cards and stuff like that. So really that was it. That was we're just trying to look into see what other opportunities there were to just improve the day to day of our staff. We're really putting a lot of effort and time into the growth of our space, of the local community, and just doing anything we can in general. Just for the city. So we want to be a part of the growth and help in any way we can.
I just have one. It's inconsequential to the rental agreement, Dan. Are you talking about adding 41 of your stalls from Cherry into River Ramp?
Possibly moving.
Matter.
Yeah, moving.
Okay.
Or some combination of. I mean, we are aware that there's not going to be enough stalls to accommodate everybody. So it literally was just trying to see what options there were. Sure. And then from there, we can make decisions based on, what worked best for all parties involved.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, and I'll work directly with you. I just need to, like I said, the only remaining clue, if you will, or piece is just getting back from Foxconn. How many can we rent? If not, I'll write the agreement today. Not a big deal. It's a kind of boilerplate type thing anyway.
Sure.
It's standard for
sure. No, absolutely. Like I said, we're happy to help and collaborate in any way we can. So I said it is kind of sad to see a bunch of spots just sitting there too. So we figured, hey, we'll help you use them.
Sure. Yeah, we're happy to accommodate.
So.
All right.
Yeah,
thanks,
that was it. Definitely appreciate your guys' help and looking into that for us.
Any questions from the committee? No?
Appreciate
Anything else
what
you want to
you're
add, Dan? No?
What was that, Randy?
doing. Appreciate what you're doing down there.
No, thank you very much. We appreciate you guys and what you do in our city. So.
Motion to close the floor.
Motion to close the floor by Alder Scannell, second by Alder Burnett. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
I make a
Good luck.
motion that we rent out whatever number of stalls Foxconn says we can rent out.
All right. Is that
Second.
agreeable with you, Alder Burnett?
Yes.
Second? Okay. So a motion by Alder Scannell, second by Alder Burnett to rent out up to 41 parking stalls in River Ramp to ISG pending Foxconn approval, I guess, right?
Yep.
Okay. Any discussion on that? All right. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. And good luck, Dan. Good luck, Chris. Hopefully we'll hear back
Yeah, I'll
soon.
be in contact with you, Dan, then.
I really appreciate it, guys.
Yep.
Have a really nice evening.
You too.
Thank you.
Before we go any further, I just want to point out everything we do tonight gets reported to council for next week. Like, we make recommendations to the council next week, which will be discussed and or approved or not. So we'll move on to number 2. Consideration of possible action on a request to install a street light on Parkwood Drive, 300 feet south of Hazelwood Lane.
This one I'll take.
Okay.
Alder Vanderleest had gotten a hold of us and had asked about this, so staff went out and took a look at this, and it's staff recommendation that we install one 9,000 lumen LED streetlight between 2450 and 2466 Parkwood. That fits in very well to the existing lighting system, and that keeps the spacing where it needs to be. So on this one, we just ask for approval to install the streetlight.
Motion to approve.
Okay.
Motion by Alder Scannell, second by Alder Burnett to approve. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Let there be light. Feel like Randy now. Consideration of possible action on request by Department of Public Works to enter into new solid waste management agreement with Brown County.
And this one I'll start off with. As you know, Brown County is in the process of getting the new landfill up and running. And part of that process is developing a procedure and process for closing the old one. Well, the old one has still got 3 to 4 years of life to it, and with the agreement, we now need the agreement modified so that it allows us to bring items to the new landfill as well while they're closing the old one. The new rates were in the packet for you. The rates have gone up a little bit due to the fact that it's a new landfill and there's some capital costs there. What Brown County has done with that is every year, or for every tipping fee that we pay in, there's a percentage that goes into what they call a rate stabilization fund, just for this purpose, so that now when the new landfill goes online, we don't get hit with a really high rate based off of the true capital costs. What they do is they apply a percentage of that rate stabilization fund to the new tipping fees to keep them relatively low. So basically what we're looking for is authorization to enter into the agreement and to accept the new tipping rates.
So moved.
All right, motion by Alder Scannell, is there a second? Second by Alder Burnett, under discussion. Alder Burnett?
Thank you, Assistant Director Burnett. No relation, by the way. I always have to say that. Do you think that this is fair? I mean, from a city perspective, obviously we're part of Brown County and they have capital expense and tipping fees are growing, but in your opinion, is this sort of, we have no choice but to move forward with it, or is there some wiggle room on the pricing?
No, I think that this was actually a very fair and equitable agreement. We've been working with the county on this for over a year in conjunction with all the other municipalities in the area that use the landfills.
Okay, all right, thank you.
One thing I was going to add, but Jim covered it, is basically that all the directors of public works in the whole county have met and discussed and nitpicked and negotiated, in my opinion, and their opinions, the best deal that we can to make, and the costs that will sustain the operating costs of the landfill operation. Obviously, yeah, do we want a lower rate? Everyone wants to pay nothing. Zero is always the best price for a new car, but you never get that.
All right.
All right, sounds good.
Any other questions or comments? We have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Number 4, consideration with possible action on request by Department of Public Works to approve the pipeline access and abandonment agreement with West Shore Pipeline Company and to authorize the mayor and the city clerk to sign the agreement.
Okay, this one I'll take is West Shore Pipeline has had a pipeline in the underground, which basically fed the tank farms to a facility on South Broadway, kind of down by the, I'll refer to as the old Fort Howard plant. What they're doing now, though, is they're actually going to abandon that pipeline in place. So there are certain city-owned parcels that they need to have an agreement signed with us for. They had an original agreement to have the pipeline in place, and now this agreement will allow them to abandon it in place and to leave the existing pipeline there. They're going to abandon this all the way from the tank farm all the way down to the facility on South Broadway. So it's not only the city that they're getting these agreements from, but any private residences as well. So if any, like for Randy, for example, if he's had a residents call him about West Shore trying to get people to, or getting them to sign, that's what this is all about. They anticipate doing this, I believe it's next summer, they want to get the abandonment complete.
Questions from the committee?
Sounds good. Motion to approve.
Motion by Alder Scannell,
Second.
second by Alder Burnett. Any discussion on that? Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 5, consideration with possible action on request by Department of Public Works on the proposed 21-22 winter contractor rates.
Okay, what this is for the rates that we actually pay contractors when they assist us with snow removal in the wintertime. And again, the rate table was on the attachment of the agenda. You can see that for the different pieces of equipment, what we're paying this year. I mean, if you have any questions on how these rates were calculated, I would defer that to Chris.
And I can summarize just real quickly. When we look at the rates every year that we're paying contractors, obviously we want a lowest rate we can maintain, for fiscal responsibility. But we want competitive rates for the contractors. We've had a lot of problems over the years getting contractors to come in and plow with us over the winter. So we haven't raised them since the winter of 1920. So last winter was the same, and it was a light winter anyways. But we're looking at the state rates versus what we pay. This is the rate is the total rate of the equipment, usage and an operator. So that's why you see high. It's not just you're paying for the person and the piece of equipment. And we have problems getting contractors to come in for meetings. Typically, we just have one before season meeting, but we're just hoping to entice them a little bit, put that rate up a little. And the meeting's only like a half an hour. Maybe they feel it's not worth their time, but we need to communicate with our colleagues here so we can coordinate our best effort for snow removal. Anyways, taking a look at it, you can see that we looked at the state rate and what the city's rate would be for our rental usage if we would rent, our vehicle depreciation and usage and our labor rate. And we could justify increasing the grader loader rate, but not really the small loader and grader. But what we did was we took that increase and we kind of spread it over all of the 4 different criteria or the 4 different units, just to give everybody a piece of the pie, if you will. So we're not really asking for any more increase than the total increase of the grader loader. We're just spreading out the wealth, if you will. We feel it's very, very comfortable and very palatable. And we have contractors who are coming in for this winter. We're just always looking for more.
Questions?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'm not going to second, but I have questions.
Nope, that's fine. Alder Burnett.
Mr. Pirlot, just can you explain this now? So we own the equipment. This will be contractors who are doing snow removal to benefit the city. Is that my understanding?
The contractors bring their own equipment and their own operators, so they supplement our fleet when plowing.
Right. So it's there. So what we pay them
For the use of their equipment and their labor hours to operate their own equipment.
So do they do roads, alleys, parking lots? What do they do exactly?
This is for roadways. We need extra loaders and tractor type, bucket units for doing cul-de-sacs and that type of thing. And then the graders and the larger loaders with a wing would plow in a route just like our loaders and graders and dump trucks.
All right. So obviously it's a bit of an increase in some of the rates, but the alternative would be the city buying the equipment on our own, leasing or whatever it be, paying additional, labor of the city's labor base to do it, like hiring more. So basically,
Correct.
It saves the city money to do it this way, even though
Right,
we're paying more.
exactly, because we only need the extra units and extra labor time to operate those units when it snows. We don't need those necessarily at other times of the year or other times of the winter.
Right.
So they come in when we need them.
Okay, I'll second that, Alderman Weary.
All right. So we have a motion by Alder Scannell, second by Alder Burnett. Any other discussion on that? Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Number 6, consideration of possible action on proposed 2022 parking division rate structure.
Okay, I'll start this one off and then hand it off to Chris. Just like every other year, the parking utility goes through at budget time roughly, and we go through and we look at what our budget is for the following year, and then we look at what our parking rates have been, and then what our parking usage has been, so we can try to predict what we're gonna have in for revenue so we can cover our costs. Obviously, this is, parking utility is not covered by the levy, so basically this is a balancing act of trying to predict how much parking usage we're gonna have next year so that we can figure out what we can charge the people for it, so. And obviously, again, Chris has done a nice job with the memo, showing you the history of, the different rates and then what the new rates will be for next year, what we're proposing.
We always try to increase rates as little as possible. Of course, we're in the midst of a pandemic, and believe it or not, coming up on February will be about 2 years since the pandemic started. And we're only back to about 56% of our occupancy as we had before the pandemic. So people are still working from home. Our parking patronage, if you will, is down, but certain costs are fixed, and we just have to look at maintaining what we have. So as you can see, if you go to the bottom of page 2 of the memo, it boils down to we're looking at a 3% increase in rental rates. And then just adjusting the parking meter rate from 90 cents per hour to 95 cents per hour, pretty nominal, obviously. And then the Adams Street lot, which is by far the most popular parking location in the downtown area, going from $1 to $1.10 per hour. And if you look, you can see it's been a little bit, there's been some time since those increases went up. Everything else would remain unchanged. In a parking ramp, 85 cents an hour, and then no change in the parking citation rates. So it's a relatively modest, just to make sure that parking operates in the black or at or near that break-even line.
Motion to approve.
Well, first, Alder Burnett.
Yeah, Chris, the director, Mr. Pierlot, how about that? Not sure how to say your position in a professional way. It doesn't sound quirky. Anyways, I remember 2-3 years ago when this came through the committee, we actually discussed this for an hour or two. There was concern about, was the increase enough, or was it to pad our account in a way to offset future increases to parking ramp construction? And there was a pretty vigorous conversation. I think the increases at that time I may have supported. It made sense. It was nominal. We had to go in the right direction. But I guess my concern is that by increasing a nickel here or dime there, especially if parking is down over the next year, because like you said, in the last 2 years, it's been greatly reduced. Are we going to be raising enough revenue to make an increase even necessary or wise in the fact that a lot of the businesses downtown may be struggling to get patrons? And if we're gonna, even though it's a nickel, it's a dime, I get that, it's small, but after a certain point, is it going to be a detriment? Is the perception going to be that, okay, we have COVID, we have a crisis, businesses are suffering, but here's the city yet again increasing, the money that it requires to park downtown? And I get what you're saying. It's the break-even point. We have to kind of play with it a little bit to make sure we don't go in the red. But what are your thoughts to that? Like, is there concern that the downtown might be pushing back a little bit?
I don't know. I'm honestly, as a person, I think about that, but I look at the operating side of the parking meters. That's my charge, if you will. We do the operating budget first. The last 2 years, I've done an operating budget that, I want to believe that we didn't ask for any more than we really need to, especially in these times. Parking division lost about $200,000 last year. They were operating in the red, so that came out of capital. We can't keep going backward. We did not resupply the vehicle and equipment replacement fund for future needs that are programmed out through 2042. I put a program together, or at least a proposed program. So based on our minimal increase operating costs, our operating costs, operating costs and revenue has to balance. Otherwise, if the revenue is less than the operating budget, the difference has to come from somewhere, and we're charged with operating as standalone. So these are the minimum increases that I recommend to just so we can.
Yeah, I respect that. Yeah, I respect that. But how much in revenue do you think this change would generate? What are the numbers on that?
I can go back and report back to you. I don't have that with me right now.
Yeah,
all those calculations are made at the time we do
Right.
what I call a sensitivity analysis. How much do we have to raise the rates to stay in business?
Yeah, and that's fair. I mean, I understand that, but I guess what I'm getting at is we have potential $23 million from the federal government that could be used for a variety of things. I think part of it is loss of revenue, business development, or things like that. So potentially with that federal dollars, we could possibly use some of those funds to offset any loss to parking revenue. Is that acceptable? Has that risen to the level of the administration to discuss it with them?
I've heard some talk of that. I am not involved in that discussion, so I don't know.
Okay, that's fair. Alderman Wary, I'm not going to second the motion. I think we could look at sourcing some of the federal dollars to offset any increase, even a nominal increase in parking revenue could generate. So again, I could change my mind. I don't want to second it until I know for sure we couldn't use that revenue for this purpose. Dime, nickel doesn't seem like a lot, but some of those businesses' perception is that we're increasing parking at a time where we have 23 million coming in that could offset it. I respect you, Mr. Pirlaz. I don't question your decision. It's just that's something that I don't feel comfortable voting yes on right now.
All right, fair enough. Alderman Scannell, you still have a motion to approve?
Sure. Yep. Yeah, I think, we've done a lot to help businesses with parking. We were going to put in meters on Broadway that have been taken out, put those back in, and that's been on hold for years now because of COVID and everything. I think we've done a lot, and I'm not sure if the ARPA dollars are going to, we're going to stretch those so many ways. I'm not sure. Look into it. I think that's a possibility, but I would assume, and maybe that's the wrong assumption, that Director Grenier and the mayor and others have had talks on this, but maybe nothing's quite done yet. I don't know. Alder Dorf? What am I doing? I'm not the sheriff. Never mind.
That's all right. No, go ahead, Alder Dorf.
I went to both of the budget meetings, and at the one last night at UW Green Bay, they talked about using that money for things like the bridge repair that we need to get done, that they're hoping to use it for that, so for some very bigger things. And so I really think that they've designated a lot based on the public comments and such. And this is so small. I'd certainly be, if it comes to council, I would be in favor of raising these rates by the dime, rounded up to the nearest dime. I think it makes sense. I don't think it's going to make that much difference. But every year we don't raise them, and then if we have to raise them a lot, as we've done with taxes in the past, then it just gets a lot worse when you get more and more into the hole. So I think it is a good idea to make smaller steps. But yeah, they laid out a lot of stuff last night, more so than at the first meeting. I think it just seemed it went a little longer. There were a lot more questions. There were maybe double the people there, but that's what I got from it.
Okay, thanks, Alder Scannell.
Yeah, Operations Director Pirlot, when would these rates go into effect?
They're proposed to go in January 1st or January 2nd, first business day of next year.
So we do have a little time if we held this to our next meeting and added
Yes.
that. Okay, well then I'd make a motion to hold till our next meeting. We can look at the ARPA stuff. We got the time, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah. I'll second that. I'll second that. And if we could just get a general idea how much a change like this would increase revenue for the city based on like 50% of the parking rate as compared to 2 years ago, or something like that. it's such a minor increase, so I don't want to belabor the point, but it is worth holding at least for a bit.
We're also trying to make up a little bit for, just FYI, which I'm sure you understand, for losses from last year because, parking can't keep losing and going backwards.
And so that's what I'm saying, the lost revenue, I mean, there's got to be some provision in those funds that we could justify taking some of that to cover that. But anyways, those are just my thoughts.
Fair enough. All right. Any other discussion on this? All right. We have a motion and a second to hold this till our next meeting. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. It is held. It did.
With both hands it.
Tightly. All right. 7 is a report of actions taken by Department of Public Works granting of licenses, sidewalk builder America Maintenance LLC was granted. We just need to receive it and place on file unless you have a question about this one.
Motion receive and place on file.
Second.
Motion by Alder Scannell, second by Alder Burnett to receive and place on file. Discussion. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Informational Director Report, Assistant Director Report. We have to change it for today.
The only thing I really have is that we're into the fall loose leaf stuff. And I think I'd let Chris talk to that. I think that's about the only thing we have to report on tonight.
Sure. We finished one full round, both east and west. West, our first round east, we completed on last week Friday. Our first round west, we completed just actually this morning. There was just a little bit left, but so technically yesterday. West, it just seems it does, has more leafy trees than the east side. But we're trying to balance the routes, so because we don't want one side of the river to get more rounds than the other side. We want to be able to pick them all up. So if we get too far ahead on the east side, we move people to the west side because we got to pick up the side that has more leaves too. It's going really well. We really haven't had a lot of complaints from the residents in general regarding our enforcement, and we're watching over the people placing yard waste in the street. At this time last year, we had almost 1,300 noted locations where there were violations. As of Friday, I think there was like 630 this year. So our message has been getting out. I feel pretty confident that that it's because of our message and public education efforts that the compliance is getting better. And by far, you've heard me say this, prefer to have compliance than go out there and be mean to people and issue citations.
Any questions from the committee? Alder Burnett?
Yeah, I mean, as long as there's some flexibility for really rare circumstances, which there have been a few in my district, and I commend Public Works for working on an acceptable solution to the property owner. So yeah, I agree. I mean, if it needs to be done, it needs to be done, but just keep allowing some flexibility for extraordinary circumstances.
Oh yeah, yes, and we are continuing to do that.
Yeah.
And Director Pirlot, I understand contractors have to remove, like if they come in and cut grass and rake leaves, they have to remove it. They can't place it on the curb. Is that?
If a contractor does work at a residence, they have to take the yard waste with them. That's kind of part of the cost of doing business.
And that I haven't had an issue with that, but with more and more of the Packer houses popping up, I think I messaged you with one and you were on top of it right away. They were putting it on the curb and in the street. And
yeah, we followed up on that one.
Yeah.
Our biggest issue with the contractors is really when they cut the trees down. And to me, I mean, just from professional and personal experience, you know, if it's a hardwood tree, I don't understand exactly why contractors don't want to take the stumpage, because if it's out for firewood, and make it $1.250 on it, extra on it.
All right. Thank you, Alder Scannell. Did you have your hand up for
I was just going to say that, you know, my own leaves are really hanging on to the trees. So hopefully they start coming down pretty soon. I mean, I got a bunch down, but man.
That is late into the season, and there are some trees that are still have a lot of green on them.
Yeah. It's crazy.
All right. Well, I'll entertain a motion to receive and place on file. Unless you have any questions, Barb? All right. Motion to receive and place on file, Alder Scannell.
Second.
Second by Alder Burnett. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Looks like we are meeting again. Is it November 24th? Is that accurate? Is that
Chances
Thanksgiving
are that'll
week?
get moved because that's like the Wednesday right before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, that, so date to be determined. How's that? Because I don't
Yes.
think, I know I won't be here.
Also,
All righty.
Move to-
That's all we have. We can adjourn unless you want to keep chatting. What else? What else we
just like to
talking about?
congratulate Assistant Director Burnett. Ran, did a great job. And of course, Chris, thanks. And motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Alder Scannell,
Second that.
by Alder Burnett. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Have a good night, everybody.
Aye.
Thank you, guys.